So I'm going to be working with Atlas with the around the round pen. We're just going to be doing some leading at Liberty. And I've kind of started at this point in the video series playing with the around the round pen. Later on I do upgrade it and I upgrade my target and stuff like that, but this is definitely in my learning phase. So what I'm trying to get Atlas to do here is kind of lunge in front of me, so work on that go forward cue. So I'm gonna point up, I'm gonna tell him to walk on, and I want him to walk first and then I walk. So those last two times look really good. He's going forward off of that voice and visual cue. He's going a few steps and then I'm clicking, that's ending the behavior, and then I'll go ahead and reinforce him. So that looks great. And he's going a little bit further because a lot of times, especially when obviously you're going to work on leading first, especially when the horse is really going off of your body language. Got a little worried there, but I'm just going to ignore it and keep working. So ask him to go this way, and he walks on nicely. But obviously you're going to work on, and he stops really quickly when he hears the click, but when you work on leading, most of that is going to be the horse following your body language. And when you switch to lunging, that can be a difficult transition for horses. He's doing this really well. I don't necessarily want him like turning back toward me to get his reinforcement. So I should have probably moved a little, like another step forward. This looks really good though. He's really picking it up quickly. He's going multiple steps and then he's going forward quite willingly and like forward. He's not just kind of like barely moving. So that looks really good. But in order to reinforce him for going forward and not turning around, I should walk forward and feed him in that position where he's facing away from me. So this looks better. So up here, facing away from me. So again, you got to pay attention to like what you're reinforcing when you actually feed the horse, even after the click. So that's important. But this looks really, really nice. I like that he's doing this. I really could start moving on at this point to once he's walked on past me, I can start following him and just build up that duration of lunging because he's got this down. So this looks really nice. And then it depends on what kind of lunging you want and what kind of cue you want. So do you want the horse to go around you and you stand completely still in the middle? Do you want the horse to go forward and then you follow and you kind of move your feet as they lunge around? It depends on what you want, and then you have to be specific on continuing to reinforce that. So for Atlas, I'm going to have him go on around me on voice cue, and then I'm going to kind of follow around and pivot and follow behind him. And that's kind of what I like to do. And I don't want to stand still necessarily because I think that's confusing for the horse because I do have to pivot to kind of follow them around on the circle. And depending on the size of the circle, there he kind of offers a trot. I like that he's going forward and not thinking back and wanting to come near me. So, but I think he went off there kind of on his own. I'm not sure. I got to be careful of not making this kind of a loop where he goes forward into trot and then kind of loops back around to get his reinforcement because I want him to just go forward and then wait for me. So I got to be careful of reinforcing that a lot. But yeah, so I like to move my feet while I'm lunging so that they're kind of used to that. Being completely stationary is kind of a difficult one for me. So he's going into trot here, so that looks pretty good. So there's my cue. There, he's going forward. Very nice. So really, I don't even need this many repetitions of this at this point. I could have him go forward a few strides and then start following him or start pivoting or whatever it might be because he's got this down. So I really don't need to be doing any more than this. So what I should have been doing is working on the halt the whole time I was working on forward because not specifically Atlas, but lots of other horses, they'll just go forward, forward, and then they'll start thinking like that's all they do, like in this particular context. So maybe around the round pen. So I'm asking him for halt. So right here, what I'm doing is he's been like taught to touch this end of the stick as his target and stop and touch it. So what he did there is he did stop, but he kind of turned. So this looks better. So I'm gonna have him bring up that stick and show him the halt, and then I'll put a voice cue on it, just like I did going forward. So he follows it and then he stops. And then I'll attach that voice cue to the halt. So I'll have a go forward and I'll have a halt. But you want to be careful. Atlas is pretty good. Like he's anticipating a little bit, like he went to trot and he walks off a few times, but overall he's pretty good. Other horses are definitely going to want to go forward a lot more. So I would just recommend from the very beginning, just adding in those cues to halt and stand still and reinforce that equally, if not more, if you have a very forward horse. He's a little afraid of that ground pole behind him, so that's why he's kind of swinging his hindquarters over. He sees that pole behind him, and he's a little nervous about that. So that's why he's doing that. So I'm gonna ask him to halt. He halts. Very nice. So that's kind of the process that I did to teach the halt, and that worked really well. I just should have taught it earlier on in the lesson. So halt, and then I'm going to start using that whoa cue right as he's starting to halt. I also need to be reinforcing here, like here where he's standing still. I need to give him moments where he just stands still, or like go back to working on default. That was another thing that I messed up on early on with my clicker training, is I didn't do that. I would just get so focused on that one behavior, I would forget to balance it out, and then I would just have way too much of forward behavior. So, and that can be really hard to fix because moving forward is self-reinforcing for most horses. So I definitely caution against that, and make sure that you're balancing those behaviors. So he's walking forward when I ask off my voice cue. I didn't even need to point up. He was just going forward, so I give him a little bit of a jackpot here. And we'll go the other way. Ask him to halt. Pretty good. It'd probably help if I used a smaller, like around the round pen, or if I used a longer target, because this is a shorter target, so it's bringing that front end toward me because he's going to try to touch it. So that's another thing. See how then it makes him turn all the way. So that's not the end of the world. I would just fix those couple of things. I'd probably just make, or like even cones, just so he's got like little cones, and he's confused because I didn't reinforce that. So he goes back to that, what he was been doing a lot of, which is going forward and going the other direction. So he offers that behavior. I'm like, nope, that's not it. So I'll just re-cue him. There we go. And then ask him to halt. Much better. And then I'll reinforce for that. So I'll just give him a little pause. I'll let him do that behavior. He just doesn't get reinforced for it. So using maybe like 4 large cones, like you'll see me work with Sebastian, or make this around the round pen much smaller, or just a long target like you saw earlier, and work on that halt. That would have helped him out for sure and kept him straight, because that's something that is not the end of the world in the beginning, but I do want to practice it because I don't want to end up with a horse that thinks that turning their front end or pushing their hind end out is part of the behavior. I don't want that. And then it's just another thing that I have to fix. I might as well do it right from the beginning. So there he's kind of anticipating going forward. He's anticipating going forward, maybe go the other direction. And I have the pivot going, so it's just going to follow him and not me. So he's just figuring it out. So I'm just going to let him figure it out and then give him a pause. I don't want to give him a behavior to do immediately as soon as he comes back because I don't want to accidentally reinforce that. So pause, ask him to go forward again. He's a little like, oh, okay, what am I doing? And then halt. See, this would have helped, and this wouldn't have happened if I would have worked on reinforcing a lot of him staying still, a lot of him stopping from the very beginning. But since I didn't, and I was very focused on him going forward, that's what he's doing. He's like, oh, when I go around the round pen, I go forward and I get reinforced. So it must be forward. The answer always must be forward. So that's why we got to really be cautious about balancing those behaviors. So if we're going forward, we also got to stop and stand still. So everything has to be balanced. And ask halt again. That looks really nice. Still kind of coming in toward the target. That's my fault, but stopping off of the cue, being nice and slow about it, and he's not really like pushing his hindquarters out, so really not too bad. Ask him to halt. Good. That looks pretty nice. And then like in between here, I should be reinforcing for staying still, because then I think some of these times where I'm cueing him to halt because he's already walked off and I need him to halt. And I don't want that. I don't want him to think, okay, well, he comes here, he stays next to me for a second and he goes off and then I ask him to halt and that's like part of the behavior chain. I don't want that. I want him waiting for my cue. So that's another thing that standing still and waiting is very important for. So I knew at the time that training the default was important, but I kind of like, okay, well, he already knows default, and then I would stop incorporating it. And that's a bad habit of mine that I need to stop doing and like start incorporating other behaviors and just adding in that default when I'm doing something else. I just get really stuck on, okay, we're doing this and then we can check this off the box versus we need to balance it out with the opposite behavior. But the whoa is looking much better. Um, he's getting it. He's paying attention. So, oh, maybe not. So he's kind of not seeing it. Also, like, I should have used a different target. This is going to be hard to see that stick is. It doesn't have like that pool noodle at the end. Um, and it was kind of new, so we hadn't really practiced with him touching this specific target a lot. So, and again, see how we have that. Oh, I should go forward to the left. I should go forward to the right. Which way do I go forward? You know, he's just offering all these behaviors. If I would have worked on standstill default, I wouldn't have this. He would go back to hopefully standstill default. So instead of all of this. So instead of just kind of waiting, so he's offering me a trot. He's like, maybe the answer is trot. No, maybe it's this way. So it's just different behaviors that he's trying to figure out. This is behavior right here. So I need to be reinforcing this where he's stopping, standing still. There we go. That was better. So, but I don't really want him to like leave and then come back and stand. See, he came and stand and then he left again. So this is that the consequences of me not balancing the behaviors out. And see, he's just offering one side, go to the other side. This must be right. This must be the answer. See, I don't want that to be a chain. I don't want him to go to the left and then go to the right and then halt. I got to be really careful about that. I just want halt. So very important to start that from the very beginning, teaching behavior.